Derivatives trading involves substantial risk of loss and is not suitable for all investors. Past performance is not necessarily indicative of future results.
So stressful when the world's on fire. Good God. I can't look at this, guys. Like, my strategy is you buy it and you hope that you got a good spot. Yeah, but we all think you're crazy. You don't fight this. No way. The markets are freaking out and you don't think that anything is wrong? Come back tomorrow and I'll lose it all. Should be fun.
Good morning, everybody. No, I did not forget about you. I was just taking one of the kids to school this morning because my wife had to work at particularly early. But we have an absolutely wild market to talk about today. So let's go to the charts. Here are the 10-year treasuries. After kind of having just kind of a meh on Friday, we are now up huge, and we are up well above the highs from January 19th. In fact, how far back do we have to go before we can see how big it is? Okay, so we still haven't completely retraced the Federal Reserve meeting from December, but pretty big jump up there. And then the S&P 500 erasing the last week's worth of gains. In fact, what is that on the percentages? Wow, that Bitcoin down 4%, NQ down 3.5%, ES down 2%, and that's before the market even opens. That is like COVID levels of crazy. Okay, guys? Oh, by the way, we have a rollover notification. Let's deal with that. Back to the chart. Oil just kind of trucking along there. It is still down a little bit. Trend is down at least. Gold and silver, well, they have come back from where they were, but the trend still looks intact. Copper having a little bit of volatility here recently. And the Japanese yen seeing the flight to safety trade for sure. And Bitcoin dipping back below 100,000. Yeah. So what's going on? Why is the market down 2%? Uzi asks, is it because of Chinese AI model? Well, kind of. Yes. So let's go into this because this is exactly the kind of what I would expect people to say. But I believe this is, well, how do I start this? I want to start this with like a great hook and everything. Is the AI bubble popping? I think it might be. And here's what's going on. I think that there's something that people are likely to miss that's really key to all of this. So what's going on? Well, last week, the Chinese released a model called DeepSeek, an AI model. And this AI model is outperforming all of the OpenAI and others' performance. But one of the key things about this DeepSeek model is that it was produced with a significantly smaller budget. They had way less computing power and they're, way less resources, and it's outperforming. Now, I think that it's kind of easy to be like, oh, well, yeah, but it's the Chinese, right? Do you really want to give all of your data and everything to the Chinese? But it's more than that. It's the big thing about this is that it is open source. So what has happened is we have been pouring all of this massive amounts of money and compute power into this AI use case thing. And then the Chinese came along and did it better and then made it open source. Why is that such a big deal? Well, you might recall one of the things that's kind of been going on in the industry is that Google and all these guys, they have like AI ethics researchers. And one of the more controversial thing that has happened is that all of the AI research or all of the ethics researchers were saying, hey, we should slow down. There's some problems with this. Like all of their research was basically saying things that Google and others didn't really want to hear. And so those ethics researchers all got let go. And so far, this kind of battle over AI has been going the way of what we call the accelerationists. And this has been led by Sam Altman and other people at OpenAI. And what they have been saying is, well, we have to put all of this money into AI research. We have to go full blow with it because the Chinese are already doing it and they're going to beat us. And then they will have this AI and we'll be behind. And what happened? The Chinese still did it, and they made it open source. So this kind of directly undermines the entire investment case for the accelerationists. They've been saying you have to invest in us because otherwise you're going to be left behind. And then the Chinese made it open source and made it available to everyone. You can go and download this model. You can kind of miniaturize the model down to the size of your video card, and you can get performance that is better than the performance that you get from OpenAI right now on your own machine. Then on top of that, something else that has been going on is that OpenAI's big thing has been, we're going to have agents or I think they call it operators, right? Operators went into beta, and this was, we have an LLM that we've trained, and it can use a web browser, and it can do whatever you want through a web browser. So you want it to log into Google Documents, and it can write up a document, whatever you want, right? And it's been a dismal failure. I mean, the results of it have been pretty much in line with the results of everybody that's tried an agent sort of deal, that there are little errors and those errors just compound on top of each other, and so you can't even do simple tasks. Now, it's still in beta, so it's not done, but everything that we're getting from people that are in the beta and everything says that it's just a complete dismal failure. So not only has there been this huge hit at like the investment thesis of OpenAI, but all of the people saying that the robots are all going to replace all white-collar workers, that's a huge setback to them. I'm not saying that this is the end of it, but I do think that the decline that you're seeing in the market today is a significant decline that is probably not just a one-day bump in the road. And you add everything else that's going on, that basically all of the growth in the market has been in this one segment, and everything else has been stagnating for the past few months. It's a big deal. I kind of wonder what, if any, impact this will have on the Federal Reserve meeting, because they were hawkish last meeting, and some of the data that I'm looking at and things like that suggests to me that we're actually having some deflationary forces coming in, and that the Federal Reserve needs to think about lowering interest rates again, like in March. So performance for what? For a chatbot. So they have all of these benchmarks where they have different types of questions and things like that they ask the bot. Some of these questions are things where it's like key things that we know that the chatbot can't do very well, like how many letter A's are in this word, or things like that, or the sorts of things that they can struggle with. So they have these kind of performance benchmarks, and you see how they perform on them. And this model performed better on those benchmarks. Okay, but you're right. It is better at being a chatbot. Yes. Yeah, ask it about Tiananmen. And I mean, this is the thing, is that it's yes, you don't necessarily want to give all of your data to China. Okay, but the thing is that it was open source, right? So here's what I think will happen. Before the end of the month is out, OpenAI will announce partnership with open source projects. That's almost guarantee what that's going to happen. So in our space, in the research space for finance, there is a real zero-sum aspect to it. That if I discover something and everybody else has it, then that thing that I discovered isn't that useful. So you don't want to tell everybody. And it has been the case for a long time that the industry, that the banks and the hedge funds and all this, they are several decades ahead of the public research. But with AI research, it's not the same thing. With the AI research, the productivity enhancements that come from being able to share all of the information are massive and kind of exponentially compound on top of each other. And so I think that there is a real argument to be made here that a corporation like OpenAI cannot actually keep up with open source development. On top of that, they apparently used OpenAI in part to help train it. So basically, whatever kind of enhancements, improvements in the model that OpenAI makes, as soon as they release that, start putting that model out to the public, the open source researchers can just go and train their models off of OpenAI's public API. Even though they don't have the underlying model, they still get the output from it. And so any kind of leaps that OpenAI does make will just almost immediately be clawed back. You see? So it really is. Seriously, they have just left a massive gaping hole in the entire investment thesis behind corporate AI. It really is a big deal. This is one of those things where I kind of thought, like I saw all of the nerds talking about it on Friday, a lot of people making a big deal out of it, and I was like, okay, whatever. Then the market opened up, and the market opened up down. This was like, oh, okay, so the nerd and the business people both are seeing it. I think this is a big deal, guys. I would not dismiss it. Yeah, ask it about Tiananmen. And like this, the other thing, Uzi, is that the researchers in the West that are doing open source research should be able to duplicate these results very easily now. So I think it's only a matter of time before. I mean, like, we had, what was it? Llama? Is Llama the kind of the more open source one, I think? That was already kind of outperforming OpenAI at points. Anyways, so I kind of think that it's poetic justice, because the whole thing has been that, we said AI is a world-changing technology, and we want to make it available to everyone. And so Elon Musk and all these people said, we're going to invest into this public research called OpenAI, and that's why it's called OpenAI, so that everybody can have it. And then Sam Altman somehow was able to go in and turn it into a private enterprise. And then what happened was that the people that were doing the AI research in the first place and said that it should be open, and here are the reasons why this is research that will work better in an open source context, and they were right. I really think that Sam Altman is screwed. And like I said, I bet you, maybe even before the end of the week, but certainly before the end of the month, you're going to be seeing them scramble, and OpenAI is probably going to announce like all of these open source partnerships, because they're going to see that, like, that, these types care so much about what the market thinks, and a move like that, they can't ignore that, right? They have to address it immediately. What does this mean for the price of what? So you see what I'm saying? So right now, the S&P 500 has clawed its way back to 6,000. But we have not opened up. We still have about 30 minutes. It's going to be interesting. So there's the whole spill. What's going on in the market? I do have a little bit of food because, again, I had to drive one of the kids to school. And also, I think we still have some leftover stuff to do here with the next video we got. Yeah, let's do that. So. So I'm going to mute myself and do that for a little bit here.
Block by.
So I miss you. AO's asking, could the market drop back to 58.16? I think I don't like trading these sorts of things in ES because it's super volatile. But if I was a bet man, I think I'd be fading this, yeah. I'm a little I do think there's maybe one scenario where like all of the downside was overnight, then they spend the rest of the day kind of going sideways, maybe clawing it back, and then maybe tomorrow or later in the week the downside continues. Although that would be very dependent on what happens on the S&P 500. I'm watching this video. The video editor sent me this video, and it was I'm talking about you know, you want to bring data from outside of the exchange. That's how you're going to get, you know, that's what the market's going to reward you for. And the animation that he uses here is really good. I love it. He's like, look, here's breaking news and economic reports. Let's bring it into the market and factor it in. I love it. It's so good. What's the name of that website that provides options gamma levels? I can't find it. What was the name of that? No, not unusual whales. Spot gamma, that's right. Yeah, I don't think I should worry about it. Midel asks, is anyone trading treasuries right now? I probably should, but I'm unfortunately I've been busy with a couple of other things this morning. Bad start to the week. I apologize, but I'm trying to think of with our indicator. Today is, I just need to go back to last week is what I should do. I was wondering if I had one on the chat history, but I don't think I really have a super great one. Actually, no. Let's do it with like nice, neat circles. All right, so that's all good and done. I'm gonna take a real quick break, refill my water, and I'll be right back. Thank you, Illegally Immigrant. You know, I have a tendency to do that. I used to have, you know, when I was using the blue microphone, had a little button on it to mute it. But with this one, I have to mute it digitally, so I can't tell when it's muted. I wish I had a microphone that had a light on it or something that told me when it's muted, you know? So just noting, AO was saying no serious bids above 6,000. The book does look a little light to me, but it is pre-market, so I don't know if that's a huge deal. Let's just try not to force what we think is going to happen on it. We are going to have the open here, and there's a lot of variability and unpredictability around what happens there, right? So, but if you know, we see the open, maybe they pull a buy out of it, and then you start seeing market makers aggressively market make against that trend. That's when I would get concerned, right? Okay, here we go. That is a lot of volume on the open for starters. And actually pretty quiet, tight for the first few seconds. Let's see here. Okay, so they are breaking to the upside there a little bit. If not, there's more sell inventory than buy. Now, I'm not entirely sure. I don't have my my companion on that one, but likely. Yeah. Okay, so that right there is a retracement of the downside that we saw just before the open. So is AT&T doing well for you today, Uzi? Let's go. Let's pull it up. I do want, it should be interesting. We need to check up on all of the parts of the market here, really, because how are other parts reacting to it? Well, okay, so MicroStrategy is down pretty big over the weekend as well, along with Bitcoin overall. AT&T. Oh, wow. Oh, wow. I mean, they've been running pretty gangbusters lately, but that's a little insane. Okay. So that's interesting. They are kind of right on the edge of key resistance, though. So we need to check back on them at the end of the week, huh? What about Goldman Sachs? Are they continuing, or are they pulling back here significantly today? Well, it is a pullback, but it is a relatively gentle one. Just for the last porn, NVIDIA, look at that. So here's, NVIDIA's kind of been going through a bit of chop, like a sideways range, and now gap, and they open up below the chop zone. That's so wild. So remember, chart patterns aren't very effective, especially not on intraday charts, but momentum and mean reversion on daily charts are a thing. And part of the way that they determine that something has momentum, like one of the easiest ways, is to look at new highs and lows, like a 50-day high and low or something like that. That right there, that is the lowest it has been since October. That is going to start triggering some people momentum short. So that absolutely matters. We come back and look at it on a 1 minute chart and see how, they just opened up huge gap. Okay, you want me to look at Apple? I forget. AAPL, right? Yeah. Apple is actually on the upside here. Now that's curious. Is there specific news happening in Apple? Or is that just some of the large caps being boosted at NVIDIA's expense? Here, Monday's biggest analyst calls. Okay. I wonder if I come to Yahoo Finance. PayPal says, I just figured they were possibly at the AI nonsense. Well, it does sound like that there was some sort of Apple enhances App Store tools. DeepSeek Sell-off reminds investors of the biggest earnings story holding up the stock market. It could be a like you say income report. It does seem like was some sort of an analyst upgrade, but like let's look at Amazon. Amazon is down. Maybe Microsoft is a better, more close approximation. No. So it is specific to Apple itself. Something about an analyst report of some sort seems to be boosting them. Maybe I can search on Reddit. Maybe Reddit will have something. New. Well, I'm not getting much of a good reason pretty much anywhere public as to why Apple is going. There does CNBC does seem to be suggesting that there was an analyst upgrade of some sort. This is something that maybe if we had CNBC Pro or something like that, we could see. But it does look like Apple is just straight up outperforming peers and is like a big winner today amidst all of the carnage. Okay. Meanwhile, the S&P 500 Open has been pretty good. So they have beaten out the last little swing high. So if you can see here on this chart, I'm not saying that this matters. Okay, but it's just kind of a benchmark to kind of give us an idea about where they're going. My cost basis from the overnight action. And granted, I reset it when we start the open, but like it sees the key point there at 60.40. But probably if I hadn't reset it, it might be up to there. I don't know. I don't know if that's going to matter in this situation though. Usually when it gets that volatile, it doesn't matter. Xian looks heavy. Well, yeah, but I mean, it's just going with correlation at the moment, though. So I don't know how big of a deal that is. Certainly, I kind of hinted at it earlier, but I think that there could be a case where from the open and maybe possibly even all day, the market just tries to recover, right? And then maybe at some point in the future it falters again, or we see if it's really a serious thing. I think that this really is a shot at the bow of like key investment thesis in the market. So I think that it could be something more than just a one-day thing, but we don't actually know that for sure. That's just my theory. Can you pull up the for which one? For the treasuries? We are right there on the treasuries, by the way.
Block sell.
So we are seeing, whoa, wow. So somebody just came in and hit the market really hard. Right there. Somebody just hit the market really hard and the market makers ate it. Which is kind of what tends to happen at that cost basis level. So now, if they're just moving on the correlation and the S&P 500 continues to move up, then maybe the treasuries can push through that and continue down. But that might also be a possible warning sign that maybe that's as far as they're going to go in the ES, at least on that particular drive. So I had a thread on Reddit where the whole liquidity whole thing came up. There's somebody that's trying to argue with me about it, and I just don't think that they understand what I'm saying. And I'm kind of like, just don't feel like arguing with them. Like, I posted the study, so like, you can argue with the study, I guess. Fall back into that level of low liquidity if the books are illiquid, price will wick. No. You're not understand. That's not understanding. If the books are I think you probably meant thick. The price stabilizes unless there are greater size market orders. That's not actually it's not entirely the way that it works. I did decide to argue with him. Hmm. So there's this other thing in the r/programming. I had a comment that was doing really well, and it got buried since then. That's kind of weird. it seems to me that there is a large group of people that are not software engineers that are maybe a little bit bitter about how well software engineering is done over the last 15 years and kind of want to see that industry fall from AI. Like, I keep seeing that. I saw earlier that something like 9.2% of software engineers do literally nothing. No. I think I know what you're talking about. Yeah. I have to go and find the study again. But that presentation of that data is like wildly deceptive. It was basically like some company that kind of had an agenda to push. Are you sure on that percent number? Yeah, here it is. Yeah, no, the 9.5 is the correct one. This is a few. Wow, there's like way more about this particular study than when I first saw it. Because here's a person just talking about all of the problems with the research itself. Apparently it's not even peer reviewed. But that's not the thread I remember reading. I'm a CPO, but every day is like being at war with bad developers. Good developers are amazing. Bad developers will kill your company quickly. Yeah. I've also noticed there's kind of this strange tendency where it's like there are some people that really just don't understand what they're doing and are just stumbling through it and getting whatever they can out there to move on to the next thing. And those people can really set you back. It can really set you back. If you look into the actual post, the guy who made it has a background as an MBA and is completely clueless while calling for mass layoffs. Here, I'll just read this thing with this guy. Paper is a reprint. It's not published and therefore not peer-reviewed. New studies can have flawed methodology, and unless someone else points that out, the researchers can obtain spurious results and come to the wrong conclusions. Alberta mentions in her video the paper is not about measuring engineer productivity. Instead, it is about collecting human feedback on random Git commits and then training a machine learning model to predict the same feedback for new commits. Why is that useful? The authors try to justify it with a big word salad and then claim this method can supplement manual code reviews. But to me, it looks like they're trying to tell companies which engineers to fire. The main author's post on Twitter/X seems to corroborate this hypothesis. The commits analyzed in the study were sourced from public and private Git repositories, all written in Java. The paper itself mentions this as a potential limiting factor for the model's ability to generate results to other programming languages and paradigms. They also provide a list of object-oriented architectural elements, but fail to mention how these elements are evaluated by their static analysis tool. They also say that the number of lines of code added, modified, removed is a good predictor for the scale and effort of programming tasks, which in my opinion is a very flawed reasoning. Yeah. The authors claim that 70 commits is sufficient for statistically significant results, but that's because they're calculating 70 commits times 10 raters times 7 questions, which results in 4,900 data points. This procedure is incorrect. Each question is a separate target variable for the model to predict. Therefore, the authors actually have 700 data points for each dependent variable, which might no longer be statistically significant. Damn. So you see there's kind of this thing where it's like the research itself is flawed, but then on top of that, even if they were doing the research right, it wouldn't necessarily say what they're saying it says. So like there's this whole thing where it's like I might spend a whole day looking at a particular issue and then make one line of code. And what you don't see in all of that is all of the investigation and testing and so forth that you had to do to find the place that needed to be coded or changed and figure out why that was an issue, and then investigate all of the possible repercussions of making that change to verify that the change is correct. And then all of the people that are going to come in and review your code, they're just going to go, oh, okay. Yeah, that I don't see any problems with that. But of course, they're not able to go through and do all of, they're not going to go and redo all of the work that you just did. They're just making certain kind of base checks, right? So for a lot of code like that, it's going to be like a one-line code change. There's not going to be any comments on the commit. And that's essentially what they're using to say that like most software engineers aren't doing anything. Right? So, the idea that it's like 10% of engineers don't do anything are ghost developers, that I don't think that the study actually supports that. Right? But there is also another thing though, that is that like, okay, so, like how many people are there in the software world where they're literally working more than one job? I think I've seen some studies on that, and the number was higher than was a little bit shocking. But it also doesn't surprise me because through most of my career, I have found that I work faster than the organization. So like I can come in and make a bunch of changes. I can do all of the work and it's all good. And I have to wait a day for somebody to review it, or I have to wait for this and that and the other sort of a thing. And it's really frustrating when you're trying to iterate quick through something and you got a bunch of people dragging their feet, so what do? You work on other stuff. And I'm sure that there's a lot of people where they're like, yeah, they're not being used at their full capacity, so they You know, and a lot of it is, you know, they're great developers and everything, and it's just the organization doesn't, you know, because basically you're only as fast as like the slowest person in the pipeline. and that happens a lot. So no, those ones weren't really studies, those were surveys though. This one was, there was a survey of like how many people are, what do they call it? Isn't there's like a subreddit for it, right? It's like overemployed. Overemployed or something like that. Yeah. No, that one can't be right. 8 in 10 remote workers have been overemployed. %37% of the total remote workforce had a second full-time, but that doesn't really tell you, like, because that might just be some, like, other jobs that aren't really full-time. %25% of remote employees say they only work around 30 to 40 hours per week. Only 5% of respondents said they work more than 80 hours per week. Oh yeah, that 80 hours would be really crazy. That might be the one that I'm remembering. Nearly half of workers have more than one full-time job. This will be hard for me to find all of this stuff because this is stuff that people were talking about like over a year ago. Full forming and evens as usual. Yeah. It's kind of funny how it, like clockwork, it works, huh? They did pause at the cost basis for a while though, didn't they? But it looks like that what's happening here is that the market makers in the treasuries did take on more inventory there. And well, actually, no, my cost basis indicator doesn't show a whole lot of increase in inventory there. It looks like that they were able to take both sides of it and not really pick up a net change in inventory. But they're pushing lower because the S&P 500 continues to recover. Anyways, we were talking about experience tells me a percentage of people in any field, even with you big brains, will probably really do virtually nothing. Well, yeah, well, like my observation has been that there's going to be some people that, like there's slowness in the pipeline anyways, and then if you slack on top of that, then yeah, you get people that like hardly do anything. I tell you what, man, one of the things that really pisses me off about my last job was that I was working so hard. I had freedom to really, because I was looking into issues. So I was always looking into something. I did so much work. Like You can go back and look at the content on our channel. I was performing far less content because the job that I had before, you know, there was just these times where that's like, this is all I can do at the moment. And okay, I'm finished writing a script until somebody gets back to me, and then I do it, right? But the newer one, I was working there, you know, 100% of my time, and I worked so hard, and then they let me go and made up these bullshit excuse. It was really because they were trying to free up cap space or whatever you want to call it. I really think that that's what was happening, because it was like, first it started out as like, okay, I got hired by the product team, we got this new team, and then they're like, actually now we're gonna put you under DevOps. Okay. And then it was actually, you're not a team anymore, your manager's not your manager anymore, we're combining you with this other team. And then all of a sudden I'm on a stand-up with like 20 other people. And if you've done the software engineering, you're in a stand-up with like 20 people, something's wrong, and I would get out. and that's what happened. That's what happened. And because I was the last person, because they made all sorts of bullshit excuses to do it. Like, oh my gosh, it just makes me so mad. I felt like I was working harder than anybody else there. You know what else pisses me off is that I feel like I've gotten so much done for the most part while I've been unemployed. We've made a ton of videos. I've done a lot of learning. I've gone through, like, you know, I had like my initial list of things and I went through those things and did more. That was stuff that before it was like, you know, maybe that was a year of stuff, and I got it done. And all done when half of the time I'm watching kids. And if I had somebody to watch the kids, we probably could already have like, you know, a trading platform going or something, you know? It's weird how long big brains stay unemployed. Well, I mean, you know, normally that's not the case. Although I don't know if we ever have like a normal time period to look at, right? But over the past 15 years, so I basically got laid off by the bank. But you know, that kind of, a lot of that had to do with the, you know, what that particular team was doing and everything. They didn't really need anymore. I had a new job within like literally the next day. Like I took a break because there was like this little class that they did, which I really liked and was amazing. I did all of the stuff that they talked about and all of the interviewing things. I was good to go. And then the very next day after that class, you know what, because I put my resume out and everything, that very day I got contacted by recruiters and then did interviews the next day, and I had the new job before the end of the week. It was like no big deal. And even during the 2008 crisis, because I went through more than one job at that time when I was in school, and each time it was like new job within the next day. And you know, and then on top of that, you know, because I worked for the bank for 6 years. I worked at the bank for 6 years. I worked at the healthcare exchange for 6 years, and then this other place for 1. You know, so it's not like I'm a job hopper or anything like that, right? Like I stuck around for a long time. They liked me and everything. But now you're unemployed, and it's like, oh well, we want the people that already have jobs for some reason. And but anyways, supposedly, like every X $1,000 that the job pays is like another month that it takes to find a job. So it would, I remember doing that when I first read that, and I did the calculation, and for me it was going to be like, on average, it would take you 9 months to find a new job. Like, whoa. And even through all of that, I think that I've interviewed at like 5 or 6 different places. Although there was only really like 1 or 2 that I thought were actually a good fit. And there was one recently that they didn't pick me, and I kind of thought that they were being silly about it, but whatever. You shouldn't expect to get everyone, right? It's really frustrating because you're like, you've been doing all this work, everybody's been praising you. I really try to work hard. I wake up early. I try to go further than everybody else around you, and then you still have people that are like, oh well, you must be lazy and blah blah blah. It's just so frustrating, man. I was watching so I was watching Squid Game 2 last night, and there were some things in the new Squid Game that were like super triggering. Like this whole thing that like so there'll be spoilers if you've watched it, but I don't think that it's like really gonna ruin it for you or anything like that. One of the things at the beginning is there's one of the people in the games was like a crypto influencer, and he made a meme coin and pumped the meme coin and then rug pulled it and disappeared. And a bunch of people in the games lost their money from that. And oh, it pisses me off. Oh, it makes me mad because the guy is just like, well, you made your own decisions, and I said that it would go up. It did go up. If you didn't sell, then that's your own dumb fault or something like. And I'm just like, oh my gosh. Like, it just makes me so mad that there are so many people out there that are influencers that are on social media that have a following, but that is what they do. That is what they do, and then we do everything that we can to make sure that people understand the risks that they're taking, and discourage them if it's really not appropriate for them. And no credit at all, I don't know. So, like, I think Squid Game, especially the first one, but really, there's a lot of good things in the second one as well. Like, it really is probably the greatest critique of Western economies. It really is, and it's a good critique because so much of it rings true. I think there are some fundamental issues with it, but so much of it rings true. Like all of the games are designed in a way where if you know the tricks to it, then you can excel. If you've practiced at it, then you can excel. But most people aren't, and so for most people, is just random. And the rules are kind of all set up in a way to lead to a certain outcome. Like, even if you get good at it, there's still probably only one person comes out of it, because there's certain games that are just like straight up eliminate a large number of people. And then even if you are able to find an advantage in it, like with the glass pane scene, then they turn the lights out because they change it on you, because it really is like it's set up to go out and favor a certain way, right? The game is rigged against you. That is very much the case. But I think that there's some key distinctions between what you see in Squid Game and what happens in the real economy, right? So for starters, in the real economy, they don't shoot you dead when you fail, right? Okay, we have all of these resources and everything to keep things going and to allow people to continue to play, essentially, right? The whole thing is to keep people engaged and involved, because that's where that's how we have productivity and everything, right? That's why unemployment probably has the biggest multiplier effect in terms of like things that you can do to spur the economy. But the other thing that I don't think that Squid Game understands is that they don't understand the key problem that the game is trying to solve, right? In Squid Game, you don't have to have a game, right? There could just be no games, and it would be fine, right? The rich people just wouldn't have the entertainment, and the poor people wouldn't have that shot to become rich. But the game doesn't have to exist, right? And in the new one, they have this whole thing about, do you want to keep the game going or do you want to stop it? And it kind of forms two teams. And it's the two teams going at each other, which I think is supposed to be an analog to, there are people that want to keep capitalism and there's people that want to change capitalism to something else. And because the people that want to change capitalism to something else aren't a large enough majority, we're all forced to continue playing the game. I think that's what it's trying to say. And then what happens in the show, like super spoiler alert, is that they have a little bit of a revolution and the revolution fails. I digress. But in the real economy, okay, the market, the free market is really not an optional thing. It's trying to solve a real problem that is necessary to solve in order to have prosperity. Because people that have things and people that want to buy things, those things that people have, are kind of naturally at odds. And how do you decide where the capital gets deployed to? Because if you go and you say, well, I think that these people, that what they're doing is really valuable to society, so they should get that much, and what these people do isn't as valuable to society. And what ends up happening is you're going to get this section of the economy that actually ends up being important and isn't valued very much, and people don't go into it, right? And that's what would happen in communism, is that it just didn't work because it wasn't able to allocate the resources effectively. It ended up with shortages, etc., 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 right? So having a free market, that's the only way to bring all of the information together and balance supply and demand. That's really the main gist of it, right? And we do it in the West in a way that provides everybody an incentive to participate. That if you participate and you work hard, that you can be rewarded for it, right? So you know, the game, not the Squid Game, but the game that we have, the economy, the market, it has to exist. There's no way around it. I really don't think that there's any way around it. If you have AIs going out and doing all of the trading, and then you wouldn't need any people anymore, it wouldn't work. You still need individual people with, incentives, that are going to do things for themselves. And if you don't have that, then people just tune out and don't participate. So it doesn't work. So you have to have a free market. The problem is that the free market is not perfect. It's an imperfect system that has its own set of problems and inequalities that come with it, right? It's just a set of lesser problems than the problems that we dealt with before we had free markets. My conclusion is that you can't create a perfect system, and that you kind of have to come in after the fact, and well, not after the fact, but you have to look at what's happening and address the problems specifically one-offs as they come up. Essentially, what everybody wants to do is they just say, oh, well, we should just increase taxes on the rich. No. You need to go and make some changes so that, the people that are making so much money, that they don't accumulate so much capital in the first place. Uzi says, my ass would be installing Windows or working retail at this point if I were you. Anything to bring money in? Well, so the issue there is that if I went and got a job at Walmart, I would be making far less than what I make on unemployment, and I wouldn't get unemployment anymore, right? Okay. B, if I was working Walmart full time, then my wife would not be able to work at all. And she has a job and she makes a certain amount of money, right? So if the job that I get doesn't fill that income gap so that my wife can basically go back to only working weekends and evenings, then it's not actually making me money or helping me in any way, you see. Now, I don't have to get as high paying of a job as I had before, but I'm not even finding, lower paying jobs in Utah here. It's something that I think has happened. I think part of it is the place that I live to. Like, I see a lot of remote roles, but are you competitive enough to get the remote roles? Because you're competing with like literally everybody in the United States for those, right? Okay, so we just go to local ones. Well, the Utah, and in particular the Lehigh area, is kind of like a mini Silicon Valley, was basically built entirely on low interest loans. And so the jobs really have just completely dried up. So I can't just get any job. I'd say that's most. Oh, I don't know if that's really true. In fact, I just strongly disagree with that since 2009, because I mean there's definitely been periods where the economy and all parts of the economy have done very, very well. Not as well as tech, but there were periods where the economy grew very, very strongly. And, unemployment has been extremely low for a long time. This is the thing that I find just so incredibly jarring about this current market, is that unemployment is low. Like on almost all of the headline numbers that you look at for these sorts of things, everything's fine. This is why it gets really frustrating if you're one of the people in the job market, because everybody's telling you, what everybody's telling you doesn't match up with your experience at all. Your experience is there's not a lot of jobs. It's an absolute nightmare. It really is a hellscape for those people looking for the jobs, right? And then everybody else around them is like, well, you must be, not a very good candidate, or stupid, or lazy, or not looking for enough jobs, or any of these sorts of things, because unemployment is really low. Everybody else can find jobs. What's wrong with you? Right? It's just, man, it's wild. I disagree that cheap money builds stronger companies. Wait, did I say that? No, I didn't say that. I said I disagree that the economy outside of the tech sector has kind of been experiencing that since 2008. That's most of the business world since 2009. That they don't have the money and they're not growing. That's not accurate. Most of the economy went through periods where they actually grew quite a bit. And there was periods where like people's income, like inflation adjusted income, really increased, especially at the lowest portion of the band. There was some really impressive things happening in the economy before COVID hit, Oh, are you trying to say that most of the business world benefited from zero interest rate policy? Okay, that might be true. I mean, I guess, like, part of the problem is absolutely that we've had zero interest rate policy for so long that basically everything optimized towards working with low interest rates, and businesses that benefit from high interest rates atrophied. And so now that we're in an economy where we have higher interest rates, it's like it's really, really hard on the economy relative to what it would be in the past. Cheap money. Yeah. Well, it certainly seems to be the case that at large companies like Google and Amazon, that there was a lot of, I wouldn't say that these people weren't doing anything. It's just that the work that they were doing ended up not really adding to the bottom line, essentially. It's like they had more money than they knew what to do with. They just put it into talent and had people go at it, and they were doing a lot of things that didn't really increase your bottom line. Yeah. And you're seeing it, this same thing. Like, one of the things that really bothers me about the past year is that like there's not a lot of money to go around to invest, and it's all gone into AI. So like, if the AI thing is a dud, which I honestly think it is, I don't think that you're going to replace all of the developers with AI. I don't. The large language models can't think. They can only access logic embedded in their models from things that people have already done and from the reinforcement learning that they get. So once it comes into a question that's not in the training set, it doesn't work. Diversity jobs. Yeah. Well, I don't know what it is like to work like in the DEI department. I am kind of like, so what do they do all day? One of the things that I do remember when working for the bank was that I would say that probably, well, it depended, but there were times when it could be as much as half of my time was spent on like what I would call internal initiatives. Like, everybody was supposed to be involved in like 2 or 3 things. So like I had like a bit for recruiting at the university, and there's different things like that, right? And then you're doing your own ongoing education. So they really invest a lot into you continuing to develop your skills at the bank, which is something they don't do elsewhere, and I really wish that other places did, but that's okay. And then there'd be always like speeches, like there would be like events. It would be like the afternoon thing at least once a week, So anywhere from a quarter to half of my time was spent on things that were mostly about like internal culture and stuff, I think. So maybe a diversity job is just only doing those things, I guess. I don't know. But I don't think that you can say that like every activity has to directly contribute to the bottom line, like there is something to be said that I think that a lot of large corporations are, just really, really ineffective because their culture is so terrible. Is the okay. No, the market's still about where it was at 60-30. So another issue that I have when looking for a job is, I think that I could probably make more on my own than I could from taking a non-software job. I would really have to just come across a really lucky circumstance to find a non-tech job that would be worth me, you know, spending my time on that, you know. Like I don't think that it would make sense. Like I think that I could make more than the $10 an hour. Just troll forums offering your services, yeah. One of the struggles that I have is that like people are willing to pay me to make indicators and stuff like that, but what a lot of people want me to do, I'm kind of like, that's really not worth your money. Like, not that it's like not worth it, not worth the pay at all, but like, you can do it yourself, and it would be better to do it yourself because then you're going to be able to modify it over and over and over and over again, right? That actually reminds me, somebody asked me to do something and I didn't. What was it? So, oh yeah, they wanted a histogram of price. And I was like, doesn't that already exist? Doesn't that already exist in NinjaTrader? What is it? Indicators. It's got to be like net change. Oh, maybe you're no. I don't think that you can just change that to a bar. Net change. Oh, no, that's just a percent that shows up in the upper right corner. That's funny. Nah, I don't think that changing it to bar works though, right? Because it's just like, it's not like change the chart style, at least. It's basically like range, but signed, right? There's got to be an indicator that does it. It's not that. Is that delta my delta? I don't think that that's... Oh, maybe it is. Hold on. Then we have to come into the editor and see if we can find that indicator and see if that's one of mine, or if I put that in, or if it's something else. No, it's yeah, it is mine. Change in price. That's it. And then just color it. That doesn't, that surely that exists somewhere else though. Anyways, I gave him like literally this. Or you can do open minus close. I was like, yep, there's the line that you want, and they're just like, that's too complicated. And I'm like, really, dude? Like, okay. Maybe there's one that's like price. No, price line. Oh, wait. Oh, range counter is a built-in. I thought that range counter was mine, but delta is mine. Yeah, that was too complicated for him, right? And this is where I'm like, I don't really want to make Ninja Trader programming for that. Like, and then like, I have to go and hustle and get as many people to let me write stuff like that for them as possible. No, thank you. But like, yeah, I don't know. Or like another way of putting it is like, I think I would rather go to the bank and take out a huge loan and try and build business rather than like working at Walmart, right? It's not that it's beneath me or anything like that. It's just that I have more productive ways to go to deal with it. And especially if whatever it was that I was doing prevented me from being able to go and find a tech job, and or prevented my wife from being able to work the hours that she needs to work, then it would not help. Ergo, but things are getting a little bit better. I think things are getting a little bit better. Now I get it, yeah. Last week I was able to submit a lot more job applications, at least. It was kind of frustrating because I was able to put out way more job applications than I had been the past few weeks. But I think I only got like one callback from it. So, I don't know. I've even been doing it like, well, today I will probably just no, when does my wife come back? Oh, there you go. She sent it to me. She comes back at 4. Okay, so 4.1 magnitude earthquake off U.S. East Coast, shaking felt in Massachusetts, New Hampshire, and Maine. So 4.1 isn't like a tsunami off of a 4.1. Is that a big deal? I don't think it is. Okay, so actually it looks to me like that there's so many factors involved, including how close to the surface it is, that the magnitude of the earthquake on its own doesn't predict very well a tsunami. Curious how much closer they'll get to Florida. Did you get snow, by the way? Did you get snow? Because I was reading people in Florida getting snow. Or are you still too far south? Too deep in? There was parts of northern Florida that got snow though, right? I'm really kind of mad because yeah, I invested a decent amount of cash over this past year so that I could ski. So I've been able to ski. It's kind of a little bit mad because it's like, well, okay, so should we sell all this stuff? But then you wouldn't be able to get your money back, really. So I skied, and it's just been a terrible snow year, especially for the resort that I go to. So it's kind of sucked. There are different types of earthquakes, so yes, different types for different types of tsunamis and the like too. Yeah, I mean, I didn't know that off the East Coast was like a seismically active area. Like, it's interesting. I would have liked for it to hit us even a little so our old husky could see some snow before he goes. The dog's still doing okay. That's so sad. I don't know what it is, but for some reason I get a lot of husky videos on TikTok lately that are basically all, oh, the police came over because my neighbor called on us saying that the dog was being left outside. And then they try and tell the dog to come inside and the dog just ignores them. It's the funniest thing. And there's like so many videos like this too. You can imagine being a husky in Florida. Oh man. Oh, did Ellie? No, not yet. Our huskies love beaching out in the sun. Okay. This downside hasn't never really stopped in the treasuries, did it? It kind of pulled back to the cost basis and then came back down lower really quickly, actually. Because the S&P 500 took another jump higher. Oh yeah, we didn't talk about that at all. I totally forgot about that thing. The beat down with Colombia. Dude, the way that whole thing... So, I think I want to give it another day or two before I really make like major conclusions about all of that. But basically what happened was Colombia rejected a plane that had illegal immigrants being sent back to Colombia on it. And they said, we won't accept it because it's a military plane. And so then Trump said, okay, we're going to put tariffs on and all of these sorts of things. And the president was very defiant. But before the night was done, he basically reneged on everything. It was like, and this is where I'm saying, like, oh, wait a few days, because maybe sometimes the reports like this can be a little bit, you know, can be difficult to sort out because everybody's trying to put their spin on it, right? Especially the countries involved. But it sounds to me like that the Colombian president basically went back on everything and was like, actually, we will take immigrants from military planes and do whatever they ask us to do. Yeah. So it really seems like he just completely capitulated. It was kind of funny trying to read it on Reddit because the people on Reddit were all trying to explain why it wasn't a capitulation. But they were like relying on older information. And then once the new information came out, like everybody just stopped talking about it. So like, but the last thing that I saw was that the Colombian president was like trying to get together with all of the southern nations to try and decide what they're going to do about it. Because like, here's the thing. These countries make a lot of money from people working in the United States and sending their money back. Like that's a lot of their tax dollars and stuff is coming from. So like they kind of have a vested interest in like the United States not enforcing their immigration laws. But I think that the import-export gap between the two basically means that if they do something like we're gonna put tariffs on all of our exports and all, you know, or on all of US imports that we import into our country, it's like it means nothing. It's like trivial. And I don't think that it's quite the same story if you're doing it with China, but if you're doing it with South American countries, I don't know if they have any real negotiating power, and it seems like it was a big win for Donald Trump last night. They give it a day or two, but it seems like that was a pretty big win for Donald Trump. More broadly, it really does seem like that Donald Trump is being super aggressive out of the gate in a way that he wasn't in his first term, right? Like, I mean, there was ICE was around during Trump's term and everything. You know, it's one of the things that I think is hilarious. So there's all these lefties on Reddit and TikTok, you know, like saying, "Oh, I saw ice here. I saw ice here. There's ice in this state." Guys, ice is in every state. There's an immigration and customs enforcement office in every state, in like every major city. In almost every major city, you can see ice. And before Obama, it was common occurrence. It was a common occurrence. And now everybody's trying to report it like, here's the Gestapo coming for you. Okay. They're going to be everywhere, guys. The whole thing is they've been coming out and like deporting people right away. And one of the things that I saw was people saying, oh, well, the previous administration must have been cooperating with them. Otherwise, they wouldn't know where these people are and everything. No. They've always known where they are. Immigrations and custom enforcement have been doing their job this whole time, you know, even before the Bush years. It's just that they weren't really allowed to enforce what they knew they were supposed to do. So as soon as the administration comes in and is like, okay, do your job, then they're immediately like, yes, I can go and arrest this guy that's been causing trouble for like the past 5 years and we haven't been able to do anything about it. Yeah. Knew exactly where they were. So now you got these people on TikTok that are like talking about cute winter boots as some sort of code word for talking about guns and stuff so that they don't get limited by the algorithm. Oh my gosh. It seems like the dumbest thing to me. It's like the dumbest thing, but at the same time, I'm like, you know, if it wasn't so cold out right now, like seriously, if it wasn't deathly freezing on most of the East Coast, I kind of think that a lefty would have done something by now. I really think, you know, like that somebody's going to get hurt from all of this craziness. When somebody gets hurt, then, you know, okay, so somebody did get hurt. It was the CEO. Okay, but when it's like women and children getting killed, I kind of think there will be a backlash then. And maybe then the lefties will kind of see the danger in what they're doing. I mean, the president was shot, no big deal, I guess. But I don't know if the guy that shot the president was, you know, the lefties are kind of trying to promote like revolution, and they're saying like go into the neighborhoods and shoot all of the white males, and you know, there's for that shooter, there's some evidence to suggest that shooter was maybe supported Trump at one point, but that overall he was just straight up crazy, right? Versus Luigi was not a crazy person, was, you know, involved in tech and by all means or by all outward indications seemed to have a pretty good life going for him, and went and attacked that or killed a CEO to make a political statement. That's like straight up just terrorism at that point. And it really kind of feels to me like that the Democrats are kind of like trying to quietly support domestic terrorism now all of a sudden. Somebody is going to do something at some point, and it's going to be sad. And the thing is that like paradoxically, it will probably just give the Trump administration reason to like clamp down on those things. It'll probably just give Donald Trump more power. Just like 9/11 gave George Bush more power. It's not a good thing. I hate talking about because you know, part of me is like, oh, the YouTube algorithm, you know, not like us because it knows that we're talking about. These are like issues that have to be talked about in our space. So like, And I don't like talking about it because it's kind of like, well, it's you know, like I think this Squid Game thing is kind of a similar thing. Like, okay, there are the rules of the game result in certain inefficiencies and optimal strategies and outcomes. And so to some extent you can kind of say that the system is rigged against certain sectors of the economy or certain actors in the economy. And you kind of have to deal with it because you do have to have a free market. So if you have to have a free market, what do you do about it? Well, I would hope that everybody that acts in the free market knows what they're doing and is given the best chance for success. So this is where this Squid Game is hyper triggering to me, because Squid Game 2, because what happens in the show is like the main character, he's like, I've done this before, and what's going to happen is you're going to get shot. And so he tells them before they start the game, like the one where they're doing red light, green light, he's like, don't move, because if you move, you'll get shot. And so he does literally everything that he can to try and stop it. And it doesn't change anything. It's like still a large portion of the people that panic and freak out and run away and get shot because they try to run away. And I feel like it's the same thing. It's like I'm sitting here, I'm trying to explain to you how the rules will work against you and what you try and do about that. And most people would rather just go and gamble their money away. And they ignore me. And so I come back to this thing that is like, well, if you really have to have the market and people really aren't going to listen to, you know, improve their own interactions with the market, then really all you can do is just make money yourself, huh? Kind of seems like I just keep coming back to this conclusion, and I hate it, and I refuse. You know, I think there's a part of me that's like, no, I refuse to believe that, but like it just seems to keep coming back to that, you know? And that's what people don't understand about this whole, what ideology do we blame BS after every shooting? Once you make the decision to do that, I don't care who you voted for or anything like that. Well, but the left is trying to play a game about who's more violent, right? I wonder if now that they're like outright supporting this sort of thing, that they'll kind of give up on the, what is the word? The facade, right? Everybody will just acknowledge that the left is more violent. And anyways, for some reason my mind just comes back to, so do I need to take out a loan and try making my own trading platform? So you know what actually happened to me? Was it Friday? It was Friday. So I had like a list of things to do and everything, but I pretty much got my next video written for the most part. And so I started going into Rust, and I was like, well, okay, so there's these particular things that I want to do. Like I want to be able to have multiple panels that you can like create and remove and deal with all of that stuff correctly. And the Rust frameworks that I found like already did that stuff. So like, I think the next step is to make something that draws a chart, which doesn't look like that'd be too hard. And then the next thing would be getting data. So like, I am kind of sitting here thinking like maybe trying to make on my own platform and turn it into a full business isn't a terrible idea. And I don't think that trying to raise money from venture capital is probably the right way. But who knows? Maybe one of these jobs comes along and it just all becomes a mute point. System dynamics. It's all endogenous. It's not random that George Soros and Stan Druckenmiller became the best macro fund managers to ever play the game. Why? Because they knew intuitively that macroeconomics was nothing more than the fruits of emergent microeconomic interactions coupled with the reactions to those conditions by monetary and fiscal authorities. Both Stan and George were individual stock analysts early in their careers. They spoke to innumerable CEOs to better understand how the economy was evolving across industries and sectors. This led to understanding that the economy was a system dynamics problem. System dynamics deals with endogenous factors that are subject to initial conditions, delays, feedback loops, and networking effects, which propagate non-equilibrium economic cycles. System dynamics deals with the real world. Classical economics deals in equilibrium-based fantasy. As a result of trying to pose as a science, the field of economics has become substantially detached from real-world behavior and has tended toward a closed theoretical discipline disconnected from the world it tries to explain. By adopting a system dynamics approach to macro investing, Soros and Druckenmiller cracked the code of how real-world economics can be effectively modeled. They utilized a Bayesian approach to risk-taking based on their holistic, microeconomic-driven macroeconomic viewpoints. Stan's lifetime 30% CAROR with no losing years is the result of a synergy between tight emotional discipline, risk management, and system dynamics thinking. Economic theory for the new millennium. This was all posted by Mark Serafini. Macro Alpha Generator. Oh, I am following this guy already. And he has a macroeconomics page. I'm just going to download that and read that later. I think one of the next videos I want to make is to try and call out the research more specifically, to say, look, like there is an actual real revolution happening in economics right now, and everybody's missing it. We're like right on the precipice of it, and it's crazy, and it answers some of the biggest, most troubling questions that we've had for hundreds of years, basically, and everybody's sleeping on it. I'm like the only guy on social media, like YouTube, talking about it. And I just get the privilege to introduce you all to these amazing minds that have figured this stuff out. All right, well, kind of looks like the treasuries are balancing back towards 109 even, although I'm not getting any kind of like really key hints here. There is that big order down at 26 is a little bit curious to me, and 1 on and 11 on the other side. those orders are a little bit unusual. The S&P 500 has been trucking along. It's done okay, but they've only recovered a little bit of it. I kind of I'm concerned that they will just kind of like carry water until like 2 o'clock. Basically 2 hours before the S&P 500 closes, at the top of the hour, you get the margin calls. So I'd be concerned about them just kind of carrying water until the margin calls and then selling off into the close. So that's one setup that I know is relevant in this situation. But then we come back tomorrow and see if they recover it or if more selling comes. I do kind of suspect that this thing with OpenAI, at least for NVIDIA, I think that NVIDIA probably has to come back a bit. And we'll see how much contagion to the rest of the market it has. Yep. Otherwise, yep, I'm gonna sign off. I will see you guys tomorrow. Stay